Thank you. So it's wonderful to be here. We're going to talk a little bit about social entrepreneurship and social media, although I don't know how much of social media I'm going to touch on. The first thing I want to go over is just touching on the numbers which we have in Africa currently in terms of internet connectivity. Currently, around 250% growth rate. It's the fastest across the world. There are around 4 million people in Kenya who are online, and then 110 million people in Africa, which represents around 11% of the population of the continent. 40% of the people who are actually in Africa who use the internet use it for social media. For the mobile platform, we have a 65% annual growth rate. It's a little bit more mature compared to the internet. There are 18 million subscribers in Kenya. We have 350 million people across Africa, and 45% of the people use their devices to access the internet. So in terms of being able to look at Africa and thinking about social entrepreneurship and what are the areas of opportunity, to me, the places and the areas that I'm concentrating on rely a lot on the Millennium Development Goals and the Kenyan Vision 2030. So with the Millennium Development Goals, there are a lot of people who are working very hard to try and realize these goals. Unfortunately, will actually not be able to do that. But there is eradication of poverty and hunger. You have universal primary education, equality, empowerment of women, reducing child mortality, maternal health, combating HIV/AIDS, malaria, other diseases, environmental sustainability, and then developing global partnerships. In Kenya, the government wants to concentrate on tourism, agriculture, manufacturing, trade, information technology, and financial services. The reason why I point this out is that we do have a lot of things we all want to do in Africa. But if you look at the Millennium Development Goals, they kind of highlight some of the key areas where we have the greatest need. If you want to get into social entrepreneurship, if you want to do anything within that space, these are some of the places that you should consider looking at. As it had been mentioned, I do run a web development firm, and what we usually do, we concentrate on some of these things. So, technology. Why do we use technology? I like what Hital had said was that technology will always change, but it's the human relations and interactivity that actually continue existing time and again. So I wanted to look at technology and what are the areas of opportunity that we have in Africa. Right now, the mobile phone has already penetrated. We already have people who are using it to access the web. So you can actually be able to start using technology to do a little bit of things. A lot of people always say we don't have that huge percentage of people who are online in Africa, but with the mobile phone you can still be able to deliver some of the services that you would have access to if you were online. So you can do these things efficiently, whether it's online, whether it's offline, whatever type of technology that you're using. That's some of the advantages that it's going to give you. There is the last mile service delivery. Now, if you're in a city, it's a lot more easier accessing public utilities, a lot more easier accessing services. But that's not necessarily the case if you are in rural areas. And technology can be able to allow you to be able to deliver service in the last mile, with the people in the farms, with the people in rural villages and towns, getting information even to the slums. It allows us to actually become more democratic in terms of information. I'm a good example of that. I went to school in the US, and while I was there, I studied architecture. Coming out of school, I decided I wanted to actually be my own person, and I didn't want to follow the process of going through apprenticeship, and you have to sit for 3 years before you do your exam and certification. So I asked myself, which skills do I have? I had the skills to be able to design. And so what can I be able to do that? Well, I figured since I already was a good designer, graphics, things like that, maybe I should start a web firm. And I'll probably say 80% of what I learned using Google or the public libraries. And none of that I was taught in school. What I learned in school was that you can be able to take a piece of knowledge or information and convert it into something useful. And so giving people access to information will allow everyone to be able to take and determine their destiny any which way, whether in rural Africa or you are somewhere sitting in some city somewhere. Job creation is a wonderful place because we can be able to bring the technology to bear for people. So you can be able to start actually having entrepreneurs who are creating systems that can allow a lot of other people to be hired and to work. So Pamoja Media East Africa, there are some of the areas that we are basically looking at. We are looking at being able to work on climate resilience. We are doing a project right now with Rockefeller Foundation where we're bringing together a number of organizations in Eastern Africa and allowing them to be able to share information and share it with the rest of the world on climate resilience. We are doing the same thing with farmers, and again, it's a project with Rockefeller Foundation. We are looking at online marketing programs for some of our clients, either within Africa or outside, also in the West. Trying to figure out what are the ways that they can be able to deliver services to their target audience, which most of the time are Africans, whether in the diaspora or within the continent. And then looking at promoting digital systems. So in Africa right now, we don't have things like payment systems. This is one of the areas that we are working very hard with some of our partners. So if we can find people who are already building what I will call the web architecture. If you don't have money running through the system, you really do not have sustainable online businesses. So things like that are some of the things that we are working at doing. So this Climate Exchange Network for Africa, this is the project we are working with Rockefeller. We are basically working with 14 grantees from Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Ethiopia, and Rwanda. And these organizations include research institutions. So Kenya Agricultural Research Institution, the research institution in Ethiopia, in Uganda, we're bringing in learning institutions and policy institutions. So how can you be able to get the government to start thinking about climate resilience and actually putting that within their policies? How can you be able to create curriculum so that 5–10 years from now, you will have students who are coming out of agricultural institutions with greater knowledge in terms of resilience? And how can you be able to do the same thing with research? How then can you be able to create this system that can then be able to impact farmers? So what is that process? Most of these farmers are not online, so looking at forming partnerships with things like cooperatives, things like buyers for some of the products that farmers out in rural Africa have access to. So you then give these people information that they can be able to deliver to the farmers. And then the area that we are also looking at getting into, and it's a good thing that you are here, so I'll probably talk to you a little bit more about this, is how can we then be able to use the mobile phones to have market access for some of the farmers. What are the prices? If I was to take my tomatoes to this market A, are the prices the best, or can I be able to go to market B or C to be able to deliver that? Then in terms of knowledge sharing, we do have a whole lot of information all these farmers have right now. But the way we structure information in Africa, especially in agriculture, is top-down. A lot of farmers have already solved problems in their local areas. We definitely need to be able to start capturing that information and then allowing each of them to share with each other. So we are working on ways that we can be able to figure that out. Some of the other industries that we are working in HIV and AIDS prevention, wildlife conservation, in travel and tourism, e-commerce, online services, telecom services, and financial services. And then the project that has been mentioned, we started a microstock company that is looking at African imagery, and we're saying instead of the 95% of the images in Africa is either war, starvation, or wild animals. What happens if we wanted to tell the story of love between two people? We actually don't have that imagery. How do the middle class in Africa live? How do the people in the slums live? How do the people work? How is the work environment? How do African cities look like? And so this project has been created. It's addressing some of these things. And more than that, a lot of photographers, if you don't have a direct contact with the client, who's going to be purchasing your images, those images just stay there. They're worthless. So we are working very hard to be able to figure out payment systems and be able to connect photographers to the people who purchase the images. And then hopefully we can